Let's get ready to throw down.
Welcome to Sales Throwdown, everybody. We are back. We're all finishing up our weeks, and we are here to talk about how to communicate with these different people and the different personality types when we run into different things that we run into, right? Because the whole reason that we're here is to learn about ourselves, but that way we can also have better conversations with other people who are not like us. And so we thought that we would talk about some things that we all run into and how we handle that and how we would adjust it for the different people that you're going to be running into, I's versus D's versus S's versus C's. And I think Al has got a jumping off point for us about something he deals with on a regular basis. You have anything like that, Al?
Well, it's not exactly jumping off, but I think for me, it's a pretty straight equation whenever I got my little diagram here, nothing fancy. I put the 4 quadrants up, and then I think about what should my verbiage contain whenever I talk to a C versus a D versus an I versus an S, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the words you choose invoke a reaction from your audience, right? Or whoever you're trying to do business with or get anywhere with in a sales conversation. So, I'll run it out to you pretty quickly here. So if I'm talking to Clint, I'm going to ask Clint, right, being a D, what are your thoughts? What are your suggestions? What would you do if you were me, right? Because Clint has a very high self-esteem. He wants to get in and tell you what his thought process is, in any given equation. So go looking with hat in hand, Clint, man, I'm struggling with this, or I'm a little uncertain about this. What would you do, right? We'll keep it there. Now, if I was going over to Nan, I would be, Nanette, I need your help on something. I'm struggling with this. How can you help me in this process of getting down the road or through the door, or this piece of paperwork, or this PO, or this contract, right? How will you help me, or can you help me? Which opens her emotional juices to, wow, somebody's in need, and I can be of assistance, right? Which is a fulfilling act for an S, right? Clint giving me his opinion fulfills his need in this whole conversation, right? So now if I'm talking to you, John, what I want to know is, can you help me understand this process? Good. Or, can you help me with this data? I'm stuck here, right? And I pose it as like a question of data, a question of a process, or what's my next step? I've gone this far, John. How do you see me getting further along in this process? Right?
That's
and
legit.
I keep it that simple on all those 3 levels. Now with an I, it is, I need your help. You've got some special traits that I'd like, using the word like, of course, to get your input on.
Gotta be stroked. Yep.
Dude, I agree. That's legit. Like, that might be.
That's all we can talk about.
Yeah. All right, guys. See you next week. No, that was awesome, man.
Wrap that around everything.
Holy shit. That was, because I saw Clint smiling whenever you were talking about how you would talk to him. So, but I feel like you hit mine like really dead on. If you show up and you're like, hey, John, do you have any thoughts on how to do this? All of them. I can't wait to tell you all of them. Right.
But here's the deal. It's imperative that you use choice words.
For sure.
Like with each one of these that really resonate with them and get their emotional juices pumping in your direction, right?
Yeah. So I'd add to that just a little bit. What you're saying is 100% correct. There's another portion of that, though, is how long you drag some of those words out. Like for me, it's to the point, right? So don't tell me a story about how you like my expertise and you need my help and all this stuff, right? Because I'm already checking out, like, this guy's trying to sell me. But if you get to the point quick, like, hey man, I'm stuck, I need your help, what can you do? And, give me your expertise. I'm all in, right? But 2 words too many, I'm out, right? And that's my personality, right?
Is there, so Clint, when you're when you're being pitched, and you're seeing all this stuff, like, do you ever think or notice that people are trying to shift towards a D state so that way they can have better conversations with you?
Yeah. And I think it's usually when I stay quiet, because I do that a lot, right? I just listen. And I notice I do this motion a lot as I'm on the phone with people, like, come on, dude, just, come on, get through the sales pitch. Come on. Cause like I've got things to do and you're trying to sell it and maybe I need your stuff, but dude, I don't have a half hour to listen to how, you're the greatest in the world and all this good. Just tell me what you provide and get to the point. But there is a point that I think when I'm silent and I'm just, one worded answers. Yeah, come on. Yep. What are you selling? I think they sense that and they have to shift. I force the hand, right? Because they instantly feel like the call's not going well. If they only knew, that's just my personality, right? So it's a shift for me to make it comfortable, but it's also, I'm forcing their hand because they're not aware to do it themselves. So I have to force it in a conversation. And if you're aware of it, because I do it on the phone when I'm talking to somebody and I hear those quick jabs, those one words, I just get to the point like, hey man, I've got 10 minutes. Let's get through this. If you don't mind, spend the 10 minutes with me. Let's go. Right. Versus telling story time and getting through, which is totally doable with an I and an S, right? Let's have some, hey man, I was golfing this weekend. I shot 3 under par. Can you believe it? And then we get to work. Like you can do that, right? With certain personalities, which is what we're talking about.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say, how do you know, like, is it just about being succinct when you're talking to a D, because like you're talking about keeping it short and keeping it to the point. These are very moody too, so emotionally driven, very, very, and I don't say that as if all of us aren't a little emotionally driven, but we're hot or cold very easily, very easily. It's, I'm either pissed off at the world and you got 10 seconds to get this out or I'm done with you. Or you catch me on a really good day where everything's going right and we can talk for hours on the phone and we can have story time. But I'm at that emotional up and down, I just am.
I agree.
And that could be.
I think D's and I's are like that. I think that's very, very typical. And I think C's and S's are just pretty much even keel across the board. Just, there's not a lot of variance in their emotions. And that's a good point.
And I agree with you, Nan. Like S's, we always, I just always think you guys are so positive, right? Most S's I've ever met always look at the brighter side of things. And D's commonly get, and C's, we kind of get looked at as the negative side a little bit. Mm-hmm. What's funny is that I's float both ways. I've noticed that. I have an I on my team, super I, could spend an 8-hour day telling you a story and get nothing done and go home and feel satisfied. But he is a very negative outlook type of person. He's not a Debbie Downer by any means, but he's an I that likes to tell stories, and he's that kind of an I, but he's also negative I. So it's a weird synopsis where most I's that you meet are the positive side, right?
Very optimistic. Yeah.
So I see I's float both ways as probably as much as a D does. But it's interesting.
Well, when you say float, I think this comes up to like volatility, right? The capacity to change pretty quickly one direction or the other because of events or levels of frustration. But yeah, I think that if you're on the phone, you got to pick this up pretty quickly because it's easy to disengage in a phone call, right? Like you said,
sure.
When people get on the phone with you, you're trying to shut them down because you don't have anything that it's sort of like you got a little distance between you and you can do that. So for the audience out there, whenever you really dig into these personalities, dig into them both on the positive and the negative, right? What's a good day for a D? What's a bad day for a D? I think with a D, pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, it's pretty blunt.
Where the other three of us may kind of be able to, get us upscale from where we're at. With a D, it's going to be harder to move that needle. I really do think it is. And you got to let them move it themselves, right?
Yeah.
And I think too, like when I talk to John, I can always sense when he's having a downer day versus an up day, but I have to dig so hard to get that out of him because the social aspect is not there, just dumping his feelings out on people, right? So you got to dig harder on a C. You can probably sense it, but you're not gonna like it. Like if you ask me, are you a good day or a bad day? Within a split second, I'm gonna answer that question, and you're gonna know.
And it's always bad.
Want to know, and I'll tell. Yeah. I mean, some people think that way, but if you ask them, I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
It's the brutal honest of the D, right? But with a C, I've always noticed you got to really dig, and sometimes it's not the day to dump, right? It's like you got to let them come to you, type of thing. So, man, every personality just has this equation that, it's not an exact science, but there's definitely things that can help you get there a lot quicker, which is what we're talking about.
Well, and you said something a minute ago that I am gonna try to like keep hold of, right, and think about a lot, because I've never really heard it talked about this way. But you said something a second ago. This high I on your team can spend all day talking to one person about one story, and they leave the work feeling satisfied, right?
Feeling like they accomplished something.
Yeah, and I think that is so important, right? Because like in my world of like helping people set up KPIs and looking for the blind spots and stuff like this, people struggle with this idea of the fact that like I am wired so differently than Al is, right? We're polar opposites on this range, right? So the things that I love to do are going to be things that are going to be a struggle for him, right? In some instances, and vice versa. But like what happens is you can tell yourself anything. Man, you know what? Today was a good day. Okay, based upon what?
Yeah.
Like how do you know?
Just
and you could.
That's a great point. That is a great point, because you're exactly right. You could come to me and say, well, what makes it so good? And I'd be like, I don't know. It just felt good. It just was good.
Everybody laughed at my jokes today. Everybody laughed at every joke I sasaid. It's a home run. I don't need anything else.
Nobody bitch slapped me today, and I feel great.
Because before you guys got on here, when it was just me and John, we were talking about our day, and John said, it's a great day. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And it's like, that's a C in a nutshell right there. You can up or down emotionally, doesn't matter, but he's going to tell you every nuance of how it happened and bullet point and stacks.
That brings up a great point. So for the audience, when you hear people using data to show their emotional IQ, right? Yeah. Or their emotional status, then they'll give it to you guys. They will, yeah, exactly. They will give you all the information. You've just got to know what to be looking for when you have a conversation with somebody, right? And then you can begin to really dig into how far, because remember there's a box, how far in that corner is that individual, right?
That's true.
Because you are on that day, right? On that day. Because I can guarantee you, if all of us are out to dinner, we're having wine, we're drinking, we all suck towards the middle, right? Because we're comfortable, it's where we want to be. But sometimes when you go to work, it's not a comfortable day. You've got other things hanging back in your cortex here that you got to deal with. So as a salesperson, you could walk into the perfect storm, right? Bad day for somebody who will just crush you, right? On a phone call or an in-person meeting. And you got to be able to work through those hard equations like that, or you just wasted your time with that sales call or that sales conversation.
So I had a call this week actually that I was way off in my assessment of what the other person was. They're being super short and super succinct, and so I'm like, okay, this person's a D, and they're not really like eager to talk to me, right? And so I know from all my conversation with Clint of like, cool, okay, like I know how to navigate this. So I'm going to push back just a little bit, just to like ensure that they're not viewing me as a doormat, right? Because Clint often talks about if he can run you over, he's going to, right? And then he views that as weakness, and then you lose all credibility, right? So I'm talking to this person, and they're super short, and I kind of crack a joke, and they're just like, yeah, and I was like, man, I kind of feel like you don't really even want to have this conversation. Are you having a bad day, or is it just me? And they flipped so fast, and they were like, God, you know what, man? I'm so sorry. Like, it's just been a rough week, and I'm sorry. I do want to talk to you. And they flipped so quick. So sometimes these gut assumptions we make about people, like in pretty rapid time sometimes, right? Sometimes you only got a couple of minutes before you have to get into the conversation, and hopefully you've got some kind of like idea of where they are.
quick question. What
Yeah.
were they though at the end of the day, at the end of the conversation?
Oh, they were squarely an IS, right?
Okay. I was
Yeah.
going to suggest that, that bigger spectrum of a swing is usually, because, remember, S's can be passive aggressive, right? So they can be in that, they just came out of something that they're really pissed off about.
Yep.
Somebody drank all the half and half in the fridge. I don't mean that to be little. I'm just simply saying it could happen to an I too. You open the fridge and you're like, damn it, now I got to drink black coffee. Shit. And so they vacillate just in a bigger swing a lot of times.
Well, and the thing about it is because a lot of S's are so so conflict averse that they'll take those 10 little things over the day and over the week, and they're just gradually building like a pressure cooker. And then all of a sudden you open that fridge and the half and half is gone, and it's just like, and it had it, right? Like they've hit their tolerance and then they blow up, and it's not even about that thing. And so that can also make it kind of hard to pin them down in conversations when they get emotional, because it's like, okay, are you avoiding the conflict, or is this like really like an emotional thing? So you have to go, I would say, even not harder, but you have to go deeper with an S of like trying to understand, like, hey, like, where are we really, to make them okay. Go ahead.
But you got to be careful that you don't hurt their feelings in the process, right? Because they're going through a real emotion, right? That a D probably wouldn't go through, right? They'd mow right past it, like, no half and half. It's black coffee today, slugging it down.
Is this going to help me win? Yes. Okay, great. Let's just make do.
Yeah.
But John, in regards to your story, look how important it was that you continued and asked a question. And then in the question, you chose the right words. So important. Two very important dynamics to that story is you didn't just go, okay, well, they're having a bad day, I'm just going to close it down. You thought about it, you decided to ask the question, and then you are cognitive of exactly what you need to say. That's so important. Our words are so important. Questions are huge. It's so important to always ask questions.
And really, I said that question thinking that they were a D, right? If I had known that they were an I/S or whatever, I probably would have gone a little bit softer, but like I was thinking they were a D because of the current situation. And so when I was phrasing that, it was a bit of a challenge, something that I would do to like Clint to like see, like, do I even have his attention? Or not, and so whenever they flipped, I was astounded, and I was honestly a little bit nervous that I was going to like blow them out of the water, like being too like direct, but thankfully it didn't go that way. We had a good conversation. We got a follow-up call next week and stuff like this, but you're going to be wrong sometimes, and that's totally okay, because the thing to remember is that people get busy, right? And it's really easy to get jaded as like salespeople of like, man, screw that guy. Like, I'm never calling on that dude again. And it's like, people are allowed to have bad days, So I think that is an important thing that a lot of salespeople forget, because you walk in there with all of your experience, all the other calls that you've had that day, that week, that month, and if you're not doing very well, you're not performing and not crushing or whatever, it's easy to bring all that baggage into this other conversation, and sometimes it's not warranted, it's undeserved, and you're hurting your chances. So.
Yeah. And don't forget too, guys, that there's always a secondary personality trait intermingled, right? So when you're dealing with
a third,
yeah, if not a third, yeah, there's some people that border the middle even, right? And that depends on emotion, day, situation, atmosphere, everything. But, like I used to work with a guy that was an SD, right? So how do you pick that guy apart on a phone call, right? Because it took me 6 months and studying his personality when I had it printed out to figure that guy out and how to work with him. It took me six months, You're not going to hit a home run with that guy on the phone, but he's going to slide one way in business practices, and you should be able to pick that up with some of these little nuances and these little phrases and stuff.
So let me ask you, Clint, was he like the epitome of a passive aggressive individual?
Yeah, it was kind of like bulldog up front, pull back, the bark without the bite type of thing.
Sure.
And so it was hard because, I recognize the D traits, and I think, okay, this guy's going to do what he says he's going to do. And when he says he's, I'm done messing with that, I'm going to get this done, I expected the result to happen soon. And then it would be like, well, I emailed that guy or I called that guy. And, it just kind of rolled on to a new topic. And so, yeah, it was tough to deal with. But after I learned everything about the personality side of it and got it straight in my own head, hey, it was one of the best guys I've ever worked with. You just had to play to the strengths, right?
I have a follow-up question here. So if he was in his bulldog mode, what did that conversation look like versus his I'm not feeling it, I'm back in this corner?
So what I learned to do with him is to basically call him out when he didn't follow through, because it would drag the D out, right? And that's the world I live in, so it was comfortable for me, right? Had it been Nan dealing with them, she would have probably drug the S side. It's okay, let's get through this together, that type of thing. So, and either way probably would have been successful, because he was very 50-50 split, which is kind of a weird personality. But for me, being on my team, it was like, hey man, what happened to that thing you said yesterday? You said you were going to get that done. What happened? You kind of challenge that bulldog mentality, and the bulldog comes back out.
So he steps up to the plate to kind of prove his worth on that side of the equation.
Exactly. But you might have to be there to kind of support that D from a D position.
Yeah, you got to come in as the gun behind his little barking ground, right?
And that's okay, right? That
absolutely.
works.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Nan, you're being awfully quiet today. Do you have any thoughts about this stuff, or have you had any situations like this week or recently that you were off in your assessment of the person and needed to shift, or something you've come up against that needed?
I'm very intuitive, so I don't usually miss that. The thing that I kept thinking, I had a big issue this week, and my takeaway whenever the issue was over was that it's really important to step back, don't point fingers, don't feel attacked in this particular situation, and just say, well, it's one of three things. Let's kind of, so I just kind of laid everything out there, knowing who I was dealing with. And when you don't know, so for instance, this morning, where Al and I are working on redoing a clinic, and this gentleman came in, and he clearly was a C. I could tell the minute I started talking to him. I brought him back to...
Because he was awesome?
Yes, because he was very awesome. Very, very awesome. Yes, he was very detailed, and he, well, it was funny because I take back to where Al was working, and Al kind of snapped at him. He said a couple things they said a couple things to each other, and Al kind of snapped at him. And I was like, all right, well, let's go in here. I just wanted to get him away from Al because I could tell Al wasn't.
Then she wait a second. She comes back and yells at me because I was mean to a vendor. I was just like.
Okay, so I was the one that was talking, so excuse me. I apologize that you feel like you needed to interrupt. But anyway, so I go out into the room with this guy. This guy it blew me away the way he did. He was a super strong C, and he just handled everything so professionally. I was like, wow, that was really good. So, and he wasn't very talkative at all. He was just kind of focused on his mission, and I'm going to get it done. And that's all I cared about. Okay. And so right before he leaves, we didn't really talk that much. I was just like, it was very minimal conversation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's leaving, and he goes, can I tell you something? He goes, I don't know if I've ever met anyone as nice as you. You are. And I was like,
well, that was because I had been a dick to him, right?
Yeah,
that's his leaving message.
Al and I haven't even talked about this, but I thought he was probably like, crap, that guy back there was just a jerk. And, he was probably like uneasy. So my point to all of this is, you never know who you're talking to. Initially, you kind of just have to step back, listen. Like Clint said, you really just have to listen, and ultimately, don't be an ass. I mean, excuse my language, but it's just. I mean, I'm not pointing my finger at you, Al. I'm just saying.
It felt that way.
I apologize. I think it's really important to give people a moment, listen to them. Then when you smile, you're like, okay, I know what this person's like. Then realize how to handle the situation. Choose your words. Know when to ask the question. But attacking people or saying, you can so easily say the wrong thing. So really be cognitive of what you're going to say, when you're going to say it. I think it's really important because you're going to leave an impression with people. Are you moving on? Are you going to get to have another talk with them? Are you going to be working with them? Whatever, on whichever area, just be really smart. And when this issue that I had with one of my clients, if I would have not learned over time how to handle a negative situation, I could have completely blown up the account by going, what? Just like in a panic. Instead, you step back and you be calm and you choose when is the right time to ask the question. What are the words you're going to use? I know I'm repeating myself, but excuse the redundancy, but I think it's so very important in dealing with people.
So Al, so let's look at this a little bit, right? Why'd you yell at the guy? Were you having a bad day?
Well, no, I went to speak to him. He had just come back in, and I was in the very back. And I guess I said something to him, and he ignored what I said, or just kind of looked past me. And so I brought it to his attention that this is what I wanted, right? And
he did that, Dr. Daniel. He did that because he was so focused on his mission. And I understand I'm glad you said that because that's a very good point. So when you're a C that doesn't, and you're very focused, I'm not picking on C's, I promise. I'm just using the example that has been given. When you're a C, be really careful with who you're dealing with, because if you're he was dealing with the D part of Al, right? So when you're a C and you're dealing with a D, you don't ignore him. You need to give him respect, but he didn't know that. So, anyway, I don't want to pick on the guy, but
Hey,
well,
but he knows now.
yeah, he does.
Well, but wait a second. He had Nanette to kind of coddle his little hurt ego. But I don't think it hurt the guy's ego. I really don't. I think the guy was just
I don't even know if he knew, to be absolutely honest. But.
Yeah, I think he turned and he addressed me, and then he went out with Nan, and Nan became the hero of the day, which was perfectly fine. I was glad for it. I mean, I wasn't trying to be his best friend. I just want a job done, and it's flooring. I'm like,
And can I speak to that, what you just said, Al? I think, now I don't think this pertains very much to Clint, but maybe, potentially. I think that what you said, I think teaming up with someone in sales is really advantageous. I think it's really good to have two different personalities. So when you're dealing with someone that's maybe not someone that you're going to feel real symbiotic with, then you can use the other person, not use, but you can, I think a team is really good. I've heard Clint say things that, because he does work with the team, he's the leader of the team, but he works with the team. Yeah. And I think that's very advantageous, that if ever you can have another person or other people with you, I think that is such a good way to cause more of a symbiotic relationship with everybody.
Yeah. Most people don't want to be in that team environment because they get rewarded in sales off the individual achievement, right? So it's very tough for anybody to want to bring somebody else in. And I think I learned by learning personality traits that I could be more successful personally if I brought my team to success, or the team that I'm part of selling in. Hey, maybe I didn't make this sale, but my team did. Therefore, our company grows. We make more money. I get more incentive. And it was all because I didn't match with the customer, but this other guy that I knew would, I had to, but for a D to give that up and to say that I'm not the right fit, it was tough. but that's through self-awareness and learning my own personality traits and my own weaknesses. And that was always my biggest one. Right. But the moment that I figured that out, to be able to bring in other personalities, and maybe you had 90% of the sale, but when it's time to make somebody feel comfortable, I bring in a John or an Ann or an Al to that conversation to say, hey, look, man, this is the team that you're rocking and rolling with. Right. So it's not just going to be me. Maybe you like me, maybe you don't, but together we'll figure this out. And that's a big revelation.
That's huge about life anyway.
I'm here to say that if you are struggling, if you're not as successful as you want to be, it is more than likely attached to your own level of self-awareness in all 100%. These situations that we talk with, right? You're getting 100%. Shut down, not because you can't do it, it's because you're not aware enough to slide into those positions that make you so much more successful, so much more profitable. And Clint just hit it, and it's when you hit these barriers. Everybody's amazing on the easy, simple ones, right? Yeah. But the ones that are more complicated and more involved are usually bigger fish, more detailed, more complex sales projects that require sometimes for you to think outside the box, go get some help, consult with other people in and around your staff so that you get that awareness of where you may be sticking or not where it's not going the way you need it to go.
I mean, anybody can sell a bottle of water to a thirsty guy in the desert, right? Everybody can do that, no matter what the personality is. Mm-hmm. But, how do you sell a bottle of water to the guy that's got 600 bottles of water in his cabinet? That's a little bit tougher sell, right? And personalities start to play in, and why do I need this? And what are you going to do for me? And why would I buy this from you versus him? And I could go buy it myself. And,
Or better yet, when you're in a competitive market with a lot of other good sales people, right?
Exactly.
Because I can tell you in healthcare sales, there's some pretty sharp individuals. These guys come in with as much awareness as Nan and I have, with great personalities. They look good. They know how to wine and dine. They know every aspect of the job, and they're great at it. And they're good they're people we like to hang out with, but they are my competitors. And when it comes down to it, it's about them being at least as good as they are and then outworking them, right? So if you're in that arena, that's a little different equation, right? Because you've gotten there, and then it's just, wow, I lost that account because I didn't work it hard enough, right? Or my back was turned, not because I wasn't good enough. So people out there listening, there's a dual component here. One is your abilities, and then your work ethic, behind that, right?
Yeah.
Grinding it out.
Yeah, there's so many techniques in sales, but it doesn't matter at all. You can know all the techniques, but if your mindset is not aligned with the actual purpose and the intention of those techniques, then what happens is it's all for nothing, right? So Clint and I don't have just tons of empathy for people just off the cuff. We have to go find that stuff, right? And so what happens is some of the things that we would say normally that are good questions and challenging questions and stuff like this come across sarcastic or passive aggressive and stuff like this. And so there was a lot of things that I have learned and picked up and, learned from coaches and learned from you guys and stuff. I'm I can't say that. Well, the only reason I'm saying that I can't say that is because I'm saying that I can't say that, right? There's a way to get that point across. It might not be in that verbiage specifically. It might have a different tone or a different pacing to it, but you actually have to believe that this stuff works, right? And so Clint and I really have to these are humans. Humans have rights and they have concerns, they have fears and everything else like that. So let's go figure that stuff out. Whereas Nanette and Al, some of the techniques are too conflict riddled. Al, have you already made a decision that we're never going to be able to work together? How'd you make that decision, right? Some of that stuff is really, really uncomfortable for I's and S's because there's conflict and you might not be liked at the end of it, right? So we've all have our own struggles with this stuff, but the mindset has got to be there before you try to do any of the techniques.
So I will say that I would guess, and total guess here, but 75% of the sales out there made is from an IS to a CD. I would say it's a huge majority, right?
Why do you say that?
The salesperson IS, and you're selling to a DC personality.
because you're going to find that in your operation side of things, you've got a lot of C's out there, right?
That's true.
Particularly when you start talking about IT projects, and when you start talking about, materials managers and people that are out there running inventory supplies. So if you're in trucking and just different shipping and receiving kind of scenarios, if you're going in the back door to do your sales pitch, you're talking to a C, right? Because they're about inventory control. They're about, do I need any more of this? I've had people at hospitals go, I got 15 of them. I don't need that, right? And now they're some of my best friends, people that I'm Facebook friends with. They run hospitals. They run the back end. Or I'm in the C-suite up there because we're talking price, because the C let me in the door, but I got to go ask the D to put it on the shelf, right? Yeah. And so I see a lot of that. Definitely a lot of that.
That's really interesting. I was gonna call BS on that statement, Clint, but I think it's true, right?
I bring that up for a reason, because there's a lot of, and you touched on it, John, is like I's and S's just in their daily phrasing or the way they talk. You open up the door for so much doubt, right? In the DC mindset of, I'm going to prove you wrong. I have the data that says that what you're saying as fact is wrong. So why I say that is because if that's the majority of the sell, and most of the salespeople out there are in the IS category, you need to learn the opposite side of the fence of the personality, because I'm telling you right now, I do it on a daily basis as a buyer. When I get these phone calls, these cold calls, and they start talking to me about, well, let me tell you about the best software on the planet. It's like, dude, that's a very one-sided opinion, and I've already shut you down. And you didn't have to say that. You didn't have to say that at all. But because you're an IS and you believe in your product and you believe in the, the greatness of everything that you can't help yourself. Mm-hmm. But if you'd have just left that phrase out, right, that conversation with me would have went completely different. Whereas it's like, hey, I've got a software here. I'd like to see how many holes you could blow in it. I want to see how bad you can blow it up.
Clint,
and
you bring up a good point, because I know eyes that have hopped. I read, you get on Facebook, and
every company they work for is the best.
They worked for 10 companies, right, in the last 5 years, right, which is 2 a year. And they're still selling. And what they do is, whenever they go to corporate training, they get that cup of Kool-Aid and they go, and then they just vomit it right back to this. And last year they were saying the same thing about somebody else's product, right? Yep. And I've seen that, and you nail that in the sense that they just go in and they're so excited about what they do.
And it's funny, because I call people out on all the time, because it happens in construction as much as any industry, right? Especially on the vendor side, where, one guy's selling this brand of air conditioner, this guy's selling the other, and then they might swap. This guy quits, he hires on, and then that guy takes his place. And it's funny because I will answer the phone call, I'll see that number, and I'll answer it and say, hey, let me guess, you're selling the best equipment today. And they'll laugh, you pegged me. But it's like, all right, look, I know both sides of it. You both suck and you're both great. You have your downfalls, but I think we need to focus on that opposite side, because I rarely sell to my own personality, hardly ever. Mm-hmm. And I would guess that most of you are probably in that category as well. I mean, it's a weird way that it works out, but I sell to John the most. I don't ever sell probably ever to a Nan. I sell to me or John. But it's mostly John, and every once in a while I get a doc personality in there. And those are, to be honest with you, those are my favorites, because we have the most fun doing it, but the C's for me are the easiest, because it's just, hey, I want the facts. This is the facts. Okay, here you go. And you tell me everything that you want. And so I give you everything that you need.
So I'm curious, though. Hold on real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Clint, do you feel this way because of how self-aware you are? Because I have talked to lots of Ds who don't want any of the details at all.
Yeah, it was miserable at first, but like I said, self-awareness and education of what we're talking about right now is hugely important, because I can be on the phone with an engineer that doesn't want to leave his cubicle, right? And he's the buyer, or he's the one making this decision, and he will tell me, look, I don't want to hear it. I just want your number. And it's like, okay, well, what number do I have to be at for you to buy it? And I'll try to get you there. Well, I need you to be at this number. Done. Hang up, go get the number, or don't, and come back. Like, that's the easiest sell for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's no bullshit. There's no red tape. It's just, here's the facts, and I meet the facts or I don't.
And you know what's crazy to me is, so I got an RFP this week from the company that does all the data plotting for the bus routes. Like, they've been around for forever, family-owned business, and they're going to do a CRM change, right? And so they send out this RFP, and I don't really get a lot of RFPs.
What's an RFP?
Request for proposal.
Oh, okay.
Right. They're asking me to bid on their project. No,
Yep.
You're not stupid.
No, I got that now. No, I know the acronym.
And so this thing is like, it's a good RFP. Like you can tell this is not their first time. It's not like, hey, we want a CRM, submit your bids. Like there's like timelines, there's capabilities, there's all of this stuff. And so I know that I still have 1,000 questions, right? But I know because of how legit this RFP feels, that my biggest concern is that they're going to want someone who's more established, more skins on the wall, a bigger team, and all of these things, because like this is like a 7-page RFP, And so I shoot an email because I'm like, let's see how this goes, because I want to have a conversation, right? But like in that email, the very first thing I said, like, thanks for like thinking of me. I have no idea how I landed on your radar. My biggest concern is that you're going to want someone who's like really well established and a big team and a lot of support. And while I think we can do everything that's on here, I might not even be in the running. Additionally, I have some questions. Could we hop on a call next week so that way we can work through them, because I don't even want to waste your time if I'm not the right fit. And the guy answered, hey, I like small business. You don't have to be huge. I just need to know that you can do it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So not fact driven at all, very much gut driven. And he was like, we can absolutely have a call next week. So I'm like, now I get to have a phone call and work my program from there. But it was one of those things to where, I made an assumption that would have stopped me if I had not just gone and asked the question.
Sure. Yeah, and that's hugely important, because I'm the opposite way, because I get these RFQs every single day. I get 50 or 60 of them in an email every morning, and I got to go through them and throw out the ones that I like, don't like, and do they even warrant a call back? And I'm in the exact opposite conversation. Hey, I think we're a little too big. This project's pretty small. Why would you use us? You're trying to pinch pennies here. And so it's very interesting that same, different worlds, opposite approach. But yeah, I mean, and I get some that's like, why is this guy calling me? I sent you the documentation. I sent you the invite on the computer. Why are you calling me? Yeah. And it's like, oh, because he's a corner C, right? And he's going to live in his computer world, and he wants everything brought to him in paper trail and facts and spreadsheets. But he's let me know that. So if I want the job, that's what I deal with.
Absolutely, right. And this is really important, because there's like a lot of people who are like, don't do RFPs and don't do RFQs, and like you're too good for all that stuff. Like you can win any number of different ways, right? You just have to put yourself in the most consistent position possible to do that, right? And to be honest, whenever I got this RFQ, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what do I want to do with this? Like, do I even want to deal with it? Because like, I'm thinking like a C, and I'm like, what, if I send out an RFQ, it's because I don't want to have any conversations, right? Like there's a reason why I've gone through the work of putting out all these details together, all this information into this nicely formatted thing and sending it over to you, because like, I don't want to be sold something that I don't think I need. So send in your stuff, and then I will look at it, and then we'll have a conversation. So like, I'm thinking that way, right? And it almost was like, I almost just like deleted the email without taking any action at all, because I'm like, this guy's not going to want to like have a conversation after doing all this work, but I tried anyway, and now we get to have a call next week. So the way that you're wired is sometimes going to like show up in how you're thinking about how you're going to approach these things. And, for like at least C's and probably S's as well, being more on the fact-driven side, we're so in our heads constantly that we can, get really like wrapped up about, well, this is what I would do. So this is the way that everybody's going to do it. And it's defaulted towards like at least for me, it defaults to like not involving other people, right? It's like, let's capture data. So,
yeah. But, and I received one last week, same kind of scenario, where I picked up the phone and made the phone call and said, hey, just looking at this project, just letting you know we are interested, just that kind of follow up, the email, phone call. And the guy was like, hey, but why I got you on the phone, don't worry about that stupid program that we send those invites through. That's just, that's our data people pushing that to you. That's the way we do it. But you can just send me an email with your proposal. But in the instructions in the RFQ is 500 documents that I have to fill out.
Yep.
And, if you don't make that phone call, this guy might not even see your proposal. That's the decision maker. So it's just like, and that's kind of off topic, but instantly I know this guy's an I. Instantly I know this guy is, just kind of a cool as shit guy that I can pick up the phone and just talk to and have the conversations with. It makes the sale process so much easier. But without that phone call and without knowledge of what he is or what I am, that you're shooting shotgun pellets at the air. It's like, maybe I get this, maybe I don't, because I'm following the instructions from a guy that doesn't even make the decision. So it's an interesting world, man.
Let me check my phone. Yep. No RFPs, no RFQs, whatever the hell those things are. They don't exist. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep.
I don't get many of them. So I was surprised to get one that was this well, because normally it's like a small, hey, we need help. Like how do we do this thing, right? Okay, cool. Let's have a conversation, see if I can help you and all this stuff. But this was legit. I think this guy has done this a couple of times, and he said he was new with the company, so I'm curious to see where he's been before, and I haven't done all my research on him yet. But there's we're wired to think certain things, right? And when it can take you down paths that are not going to be helpful. So follow the process as opposed to just doing how you feel about it at the moment. It's kind of my takeaway from that. Well, we are at time, guys. We're at 45 now, and this has been a solid ep, I would say. Let's go around real quick. Clint, do you have any other thoughts about anything we talked about today? Any points you want to drive home?
I mean, you guys know my 2 cents, but just how important it is, and I will beat this into everybody's head that I can. Learn what DISC or whatever personality assessment you take. Learn you first. Get it down to where you have no questions, no doubt, and then by doing that, you'll start to feel a confidence in studying other people and pushing that agenda, right? Just figure yourself out first, and don't be scared of it. It's who you are. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's just who you are.
Absolutely. Dude, that's awesome. Good. Al?
Yeah. Choose your words carefully. And when I say that, the words you use will either move that emotional needle in a business sense with the person that you're speaking to, and you'll get their engagement because of that emotional needle moving, or you won't. And if you're failing at that, if people seem to be disengaged, it may be just the words that you're using. Nothing else wrong with your acumen, what you know about your product, or your ability to walk through that door and have the conversation. But maybe the choice of words is just not fitting the ears of the person that you're speaking to.
Absolutely. Nanette, do you have anything?
Mine's not that much different, but, think before you speak.
Absolutely.
Think of what you're going to say and when you're going to say it. I'm learning. Believe me, I don't know if anyone completely accomplishes that, but it's vital in life.
Yeah, for me, you guys all hit really amazing points. I love Clint's point about it's not good, it's not bad, you just got to figure it out. I love Al's point about choosing the words very carefully, because as a C, I think that I run the risk of running off the most people with having all the data and all the details and all the information I want to share with you, and just let me fix your problem and all of these things, right? So, and maybe we all feel this way, but slowing down, because I've seen Al's eyes glaze over of just this is too much, right? And then now I know that for what it is, but back before all of this stuff, and I worked for Al, and I would be going into detail, and he's just kind of are you done? Are you done? Are you done? Can we move on? It would be endlessly frustrating, but I love Clint's idea, right? Start with yourself, because once you know yourself and you know exactly where you are, you know all the things that you aren't. So that way you can look for those things that you are not in other people that you're talking to. So process of elimination, I think, is really important there. Dude, guys, this was awesome. I was not sure how much we would get out of this, but I got a lot. So
before we leave, when John goes into that, I'm like, 1 second.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Okay,
right?
Go ahead. I'm back. Yeah. Hit me with it.
So, guys, if you know anybody else in sales who is struggling, if they're not hitting their goals, if they're looking to get into sales because of COVID or career change or something else like this, please share this with them. We put a lot of work into this, and we honestly feel like there's a ton of value here. So share this with somebody else. Make it a talking point, right? If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you are listening, thanks for your patience as we're figuring out some of the quality issues on the audio. But share this with somebody else. Leave us a review. We read every one of them, and they're hugely important to us. And go out and kill your weeks, and we'll see everybody really soon. Cheers.